This is the Marketing Podcast Network.
Stories influence, teach, and inspire us. But what about the storytellers who create them? Uncorking a Story profiles storytellers to uncover how their background and life experiences influence the stories they create. We learn what motivates them, their path to success, and what fuels them to keep creating. It all starts by asking one simple question: where does your story begin? Welcome to Uncorking a Story. Now here's your host, Mike Carlin.
Well, hello and welcome to Uncorking a Story. I'm your host, Mike Carlin, and today I'm excited to introduce you to Kristina Lucia. Kristina is an artist, creator, and author who ignites the imaginations of children and their parents through her limited edition animals and touching storybooks. Her humble beginnings in a small farm town where there was only one traffic light sparked her creativity at a young age, and her adopted home of New York City keeps her inspired daily. She joins me today on Uncorking a Story to talk about her life as well as her books, which include the Bella Lucia Book Series. Welcome to Uncorking a Story, Kristina.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
I mean, it's quite the intro, which I do want to dig into various elements of that. But I'm going to start, with my standard opening question, which is, where does your story as an author begin?
It's so funny because the deeper I get into this journey, I feel it starts from many, many different points. And my journey actually started at the age of 7 years old when I first started formally training in art. I was labeled and acknowledged as an artist by both my parents, and they guided me to an art teacher. And I was actually young to be taken on as a student. Normally, she didn't take children until they were at least 9 years old. But my mom brought my art to her, and she said, "I'll take your daughter." And it wasn't just a color by number, do what you want coloring class. And this was a formal art training. I was learning shading and perspective and mixing colors. And anyone listening that's been through that kind of art training knows it's complex stuff, but it's important to instill it from the beginning because you're always working on it. To this day, I'm still working on those skills. It's a never-ending story, which is really beautiful about it. And as a child, my first dream was to become a Disney artist. Mm-hmm. And my second dream was a children's author because I never thought I was a writer. The irony is I wasn't a reader as a child. I did not enjoy reading. I was actually bullied by adults for not wanting to read. I was told there's something wrong with you. You don't know things, so you're not a reader, da, da, da. And somewhere in my early 20s, I just became a reader. And now I'm that woman that packs three, if not four books in a suitcase. And even that's not enough for me for a vacation. That's actually not enough. And so I will say the writing part of my journey, it was actually my editor, Susan Crossman. Then it was actually this past December, after about a year and a half of writing and several months of editing with Susan, where she said, "No, you are a writer. You're a capital W writer." And that was like a big moment for me in my journey, is acknowledging that it's both sides. This isn't just something that I happened into. This is something that came to me. And I think it's a moral of the story is we find things when we're ready. We tap into things when we're ready. We can't force it. It's a matter of right time, right place.
Yeah, no, totally. So what were you doing before, this part of your journey? So kind of bridge the gap for me a little bit. So before
Absolutely.
You were, doing the limited edition stuffed animals and the storybooks, what was your life before?
Oh gosh. So I was leading a double life for a very long time. As you read in my bio, I grew up in a small town and never really belonged. And even in my own immediate family, I never belonged. I was always highly creative, highly artistic, but I felt something was off. And when I saw New York for the first time at 10 years old, I felt like this is something. And I went to school for art, but I didn't know how to make a living with my art at that point in time. So I found my way into different career paths. So my most current career path before this, I was actually on Wall Street. And which I know for people that know me now, like even people that knew me, like there's something off with you. Like, I'm like, I know I'm an artist, I'm a dancer, but I didn't know how to make a living because my parents were very strict. I said from the time I was a child, I moved to New York, and at 18, they said, "Great, figure it out. Like if you walk out that door, you're on your own." And so I was on my own. So I had to make a living. And unfortunately, I didn't have community around me. And so I kept falling into these careers that I didn't belong in, but I learned things from those careers. I learned how to work with demanding people. I learned how to work with difficult personalities. Being on Wall Street, I actually was in research. And even though I was an executive assistant, I did get to do a lot of event planning. I actually did have responsibilities of writing certain research reports, which were monthlies and weeklies at certain points in my time there. So I did get a taste of publishing. I did get a taste of the deadlines and the process. And it's different from what I'm doing now, but the process isn't different. There's still, you need to go through an editor. There's still the publishing process. Like, it's all these things that you don't think of when you say, oh, I'm going to write a book. It's like, there's a lot more to it to get it on the shelf. Like, there's a lot going on.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like bringing a product to market. So it's like you learn that the creative side of it, the writing side of it, to me, that's the fun side, that's where you're kind of losing yourself and you're kind of exploring things. And then there's the publishing side, which is the business side of it, which is like, oh, I wasn't prepared for this. So many first-time authors are like, wow. I mean, they think the hard part is writing the book, and really it's, for some people, I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush here. Funny saying that to an artist, but it's like, when you have to get out there and publicize it, you've got to get out there and do things like this, like podcasts, and so many authors are so introverted. It's a struggle. It can be a struggle.
Absolutely. And that's the thing too, is actually my first job out of college, I was in fashion and I was a sales assistant. And I remember my boss, who was very difficult. It was an abusive relationship. And I do remember him clearly saying to me, I think you're going to be great at sales. But what he didn't do is he didn't explain to me what sales are. What I thought sales is pushing product. What sales really is developing relationships and trust with people.
Yeah.
And I realized like what he was saying, but also he was putting me in a bucket. He was putting me in a bucket of wholesale children's clothing. It's ironic that like children's has always been like, like somewhere in my life, somewhere in my thread. And now as an author, I realized that. And that's the thing too, because like originally, like at one point in my career, I really wanted to do acting in college. Like I wanted to be on Broadway, and when I found my way back into my dancing in my mid-20s, like that fulfills such a big gap. And I still am an active competitive dancer. But, it's ironic because when I discovered I'm an author, all the pieces like came together. It's like all of these things. Because like you said, like I interact with a lot of children's authors, but a lot of them are introverted. And as an author that's working on building community, that's looking to do events, that's like, making those handshakes when people are like, oh, no, I don't do that. Or, oh, no, that's not worth my time. It's really frustrating because the Wall Street guru in me, not guru, excuse me, I'm not a guru at Wall Street, but the Wall Street background in me is like, no, you got to hit the pavement. You got to shake the hands. You got to get out there.
That's right. Press the flesh, as they say.
Exactly.
what kind of, so tell me a little bit about like transitioning from, Wall Street corporate-y type stuff to kind of doing what you're doing now, and how you made that transition and what that transition was like.
Oh gosh, it's quite a story. So it actually started a couple years prior to the actual physical transition. So what happened was my mother and I had a really bad fight, and it led me to go into therapy. And therapy made me realize and gather the tools to realize, okay, yes, that inkling that I don't belong is true, but it gave me the tools to find where I belong. And it also made me realize how the traumas of my childhood had shifted over into my career. And in 2018, I was in one of my ballet classes and I was taking my last grand jeté, which is a big leap. And I thought the floor broke, and it was me. And all my friends to this day are always like, of course you thought the floor broke. Why would you break? It's such a Kristina thing to think, right? And so I ruptured my Achilles tendon. And
ouch.
Yeah. And it wasn't even painful. I was like, what happened? And luckily I had the smarts to go to see the MD immediately, and they diagnosed me. And the first thing I did when I found the diagnosis is I started crying because my major coach was going to be in town, and I started crying. And looking back on it, it was just a sign that I'm a creative. When you're crying about missing your coaching, not worrying about like, how am I going to pay my bills? Like, that was like my first reaction. I was like, I'm going to miss my coaching. And so because of that injury, I was in surgery a week later, thankfully, but I had to take medical leave from my job. And I was literally sitting on my ottoman crocheting away because I learned to crochet a year before. And my buddy Alex, who ironically is a dad now, and we were FaceTiming the other day, he came over to visit, and he was my coworker for a long time. And he said, "What are you doing? You don't belong here. You don't belong on Wall Street. You're a creative. Look at you. You're a dancer. Look at your feet. Even like with a boot on, you're still turned out." And that's what started it. So I actually utilized that medical leave to start networking and start laying my path. And I started sending DMs on Facebook. I was on crutches in a boot, and I was like going to meet people for coffee. I was like, and I lump it together so I could, take a shared ride and save money that way. And I kept getting a lot of no's. And it led me to think, wait, for your dancing, you have coaches. Why don't you have coaching for a career search? And so that led me to find my coach, Matilda. And she said something to me I'll never forget. She said, 80% of jobs are not posted. I was like, I knew it. And it's like that light bulb moment. And so when I did go back in the office a week later after meeting Matilda, what she did is she fine-tuned my networking strategy. And she also taught me how to write a cold email. And so fast forward to 2019, a year later, when I got laid off, yes, it was scary, but I already started this ball rolling of transitioning. And I was still trying to get into back into corporate. I thought I'll start corporate, but then I'll develop something else because I had this time as well. I was like, let me start developing entrepreneurial things. And there was one idea I had, and the other idea was these characters I created because someone said, you have a business here. And I kept pitching the characters and people started gravitating. And I found out I was right to declare myself an entrepreneur. I remember I was in a WeWork conference room. I looked at Matilda, declare myself an entrepreneur. I was like, and she's like, I agree. And I was like, okay, but what now? And she's like, well, let's figure out your secret sauce. And so I kept pitching these two ideas. And within a week or two of pitching them, I got a text from my sister saying that our mom was very ill. I called my dad and her, and they said, yeah, mom's being tested. We'll have more. That Thursday, I went out to find out my mom was stage 4 lung cancer.
Oh, wow.
And a week later, she passed.
Oh my gosh.
The night I found out she was ill, not knowing how ill, I swear it was my grandma. That's my mom's mom. I'm named after her. That's why I'm a Lucia. And I went on, filed for my LLC for the characters for Curiously. Originally, it was Kristina Lucia Teddy Bears, and I changed it to Curiously Created Creations. The day my mom passed is the day I got the first piece of mail addressed to my company. And I knew it was a sign from my mom and grandma. And I knew they were saying, we need you to pursue this. And a year later in the late fall, early December is when I discovered I was going to be a children's author. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Did you get a chance before your mother passed to sort of reconcile with her? I know it sounds like, you had a very large fight with her, which threw you into therapy. Did you get a chance to patch things up, or?
We did and we didn't. She unfortunately chose not to do the work I'm doing. What I do now, the work I currently do, because my therapist released me in 2019. Early 2020. And she released me in that she guided me to adult children of alcoholics, which is 12-step work. And I remember about 6 months before her getting ill, we did have another falling out because something else happened between me and another family member. And I remember sitting there thinking, I can't do this anymore. And my mom loved the Whitney Houston song, I Will Always Love You. And the line where she said, if I'd stay, I'd only be in the way, is a very hard line for me to listen to, because the woman in heaven is the woman I wanted here. And that's like the most difficult part. She actually did yell at me too when she was sick. So I didn't know how sick she was when I got there. Everybody else was aware of it. My brother and father were there. My sister, was not there at that moment, but I was basically backed in the corner, and there was the doctor and all these nurses. I swear to God, there was like 10 different medical professionals in the room. And my brother and father are taking notes. And the doctor says, Mrs. Andrews, you're stage 4. And I started melting. And when I got back, I went outside the room and asked the nurse, everyone's really stressed right now in my family. How can I get information so I don't melt down like this in front of my mother? Because I didn't want to get mad at my family, but at the same time, I need to take responsibility. And I walked back in the room. My mom, unfortunately, because of the tubes, had a hard time talking, and she motions me over. It's a very Italian thing. I'm sure you're aware of, like, because I think you're Italian too, like that motion. And like Pablo's dog, I taught all over, and she writes, negativity is not good. And like a good, I know, like a good Italian daughter, I'm her oldest. I have her hair color. I'm her mom's namesake. I said, okay, Ma. And then she said, how's your job hunt going? I said, Mom, I'm an entrepreneur. And she lit up. And so I do believe, and it's ironic because after her passing, she does send me signs when we each went through my mom's clothes separately. And when I went through them, luckily, like I am fortunate that I do stay with my sister when I visit. I was looking for this rosary. Paris is my favorite city in the world. And I had bought my mom a rosary in Notre Dame that I got blessed here. And of course, again, I know you'll appreciate this. We're very Catholic, at least my mom and I are. And she gives me this look on Christmas morning. I'm like, Ma, it's blessed. I'm like, relax. She gave me the look, and I was like, of course it's blessed. And so I was looking for it though, and I couldn't find it. So when I went back to my sister's, I was that evening, I said, I was looking for this rosary. I bought it in Paris. I can't find it for Mom. I can't find it. Do you know where it is? And she said, can you describe it? And she said, oh, it's with Mom. When we were picking out her outfit, we saw it and we thought it was really beautiful, and we put it with her.
Oh,
and
wow.
I know it's my mom.
Yeah.
I know my mother. She's very type A like me. She took that piece. And then when my sister and brother finished up going through her clothes a couple months later, my sister sent me a picture saying, mine are yours. And it was my childhood Lovey that she had folded in her, that she had put in. I'm her wild child. I'm the wild horse that she couldn't tame. And I know that frustrated her. Like, I know she wanted me a certain way, and I look like her. I act like her in certain ways. And I think these little things were her way of taking pieces of me. And, so I do, even though in this life we didn't have that deep conversation that I know many of us can fantasize about and want, but at the same time, this healing has led me to open up my heart and mind and know that she is with me and she is supporting me, and she continues to send me signs all the time. So, yeah.
It's cool that you could recognize those signs, because I believe in that too. I believe my grandmother, who she and I were very, very close. Sometimes I'll smell her perfume, which is, it's odd, right? In the middle of like being outside, or the flowers. I distinctly remember the flowers at her wake. I will smell them. And I only smell them, when I go to funeral homes, but I will have that sense that smell is like hitting me at random times. It's very strange. It's very strange.
No, it's really beautiful, because another big sign my mom sent me. So I love Italy. Like, if I'm not in Paris and Italy once a year, I'm a basket case. Like, that's just like my sanity check. And so I'm actually in the process of figuring out like when I'm going to Italy this August, because I need to go. But when I went last year, I went to Florence and Cinque Terre this time. And originally I was thinking something different. And then something in my head, it was actually when I was like, right now I'm in Austin, dog sitting. And ironically, it was the same trip last June when I was like, I need to book my trips. And I swear mom came to me because I kept thinking, Cinque Terre. I'm like, okay, Mom wants me to go. I need to go. And that first night wandering through the Piazza in Florence, I absolutely love both. I love Florence. I love Cinque Terre. And I had this epiphany. I was like, oh my God, Mom's with me, because Mom and I were always supposed to take a trip. And she either disinvited me, or it didn't work out, or like just drama. It was just drama that wasn't necessary, unfortunately, but it happened. And it was this beautiful moment of like, oh my gosh, mom's here with me. And at least for anyone that's been to Cinque Terre, like my mom had a very severe fear of heights. She had the severe fear of water, and Cinque Terre is all mountains. The ocean's rock. I mean, I love the ocean, but it's all rocks. So if you have a fear of water, like it's not the beach you should be going to. Although I loved it, I thought it was great. But it was this beautiful moment of like, oh my gosh, mom's swimming in the ocean with me. Like she's climbing these trails with me, and she's not fair and she's not afraid. She's not feeling those anxieties, and it was really beautiful. But I will say though, when I went shopping, because like I always go shopping when I'm in Europe because it's cheaper for the stuff I want, and I can just hear a voice in my head, that's your grandmother. I do not do shopping. That's your grandmother.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I want to go back to like, you feeling as if you didn't belong. How did that manifest itself in you? I'm really curious. I think a lot of artists, a lot of authors kind of feel that way. At some point, I know I felt that way. Like, I don't know where I came from sometimes. Like my twin brother and I couldn't be, I mean, we can finish each other's sentences, but we couldn't be any more different, in terms of our outlook on life and stuff like that. But how did it feel to you that you didn't belong?
I was bullied a lot. I was bullied very consistently, both within family situations as well as at school. I was told that I was odd, because my mom suffered from anxiety and narcissism. There was a lot of miscommunication in the family dynamic. And what my mom actually did unknowingly is my love language is words of affirmation. That's how I like to be loved.
Mm-hmm.
And she diagnosed me with low self-esteem. And because she misunderstood my communication patterns. And there were other things too. I was a late talker, and the public schools labeled me as, for lack of a better word, dumb. And my mom fought it. Luckily, my mom did fight it, and she had me tested and said, no, your child's actually highly intelligent. Just her brain's going like 100 miles per hour, and her mouth and her speech skills aren't there yet, but she's going to catch up. And I just always was different in that way. And my editor put it beautifully. And when she told me, you're a capital W writer, I've always been very sensitive. And I realize an adult woman, and that's why my books focus on communication and feelings, is that it takes time to develop our skills. Even as adults, we still have to work on it, being able to talk about our feelings, how to communicate our feelings, and recognize, okay, I'm a sensitive person. How do I take a step back? Like, what do I need to do to be able to function in a group where people may not be aware of that right away? And it's a constant process. And I've always been a city girl. I love stimulation. Like, I love that. And that was another thing. Like, my family is actually the opposite. They enjoy rural Massachusetts, rural Rhode Island, where it's like you can hear a pin drop for a mile. Whereas I realized like I need stimulation. So that was a lot of it too, is that my dynamics and needs are very different from the family I grew up in. Even though I swear to God, if I didn't look so much like my mom, they would have thought I was like the milkman's child, because like I am so different from them. But as a grown woman, that's where my 12-step work comes in and my therapy work comes in, is where I'm able to respect when I am around family. Like this, okay, I'm going to roll this way. Or also too, like I was just at Easter in Massachusetts earlier this week, and a family friend said something to me that I was hurt by. And my healing work, and because I write about communication, I'm like, I got to practice this constantly even more, because it's one thing to write about. It's another thing to like embody and really work on it. And I turned to that family friend. I said, that's not fair. That's not fair of you to say that to me. It's hurtful. And I appreciate you not accusing me of this, because it's not right.
Yeah. God, you just said something, and I had a thought in my head, and then I was listening to you, and then I totally forgot it. So I hope it comes back.
It will.
I'll say a prayer to St. Anthony to have that.
I love it.
Maybe I can find that. Well, I do want to go to talking about your books, especially because you said something really interesting to me, which is that they focus on communication, and kids' childhood to me, you're kind of, and I'm just thinking back to it. So we have triplets; they're about to turn 21, which is utterly mind blowing. But I remember when they were like, when I'd like reading books to them every single night. Every night that was the ritual, right? Picture books. I could probably recite Madeline to you to this day, or Harold and the Purple Crayon. But the choice to focus on communication, I'm intrigued by, because I think kids, especially young kids who are just learning to become verbal, now trying to link feelings and words. To me, I think we expect way too much of our kids, but tell me a little bit about that kind of choosing to focus on communication.
Absolutely. So that came from my relationship with my mother and with people in my life that I've had rifts with. And I realized, wow, if there was a form of communication, if there was a calmness where we both hear each other and listen to each other. And ironically, it was about, when was it? My first books came out this year. I'm trying to think of when it was. It was Christmas 2021. I had a really deep heart to heart with a family member. And I was able to calmly say to them, this really hurt. And they said, I'm sorry. It was wrong. And it was a really beautiful moment of realizing that if I can calmly say how I feel and own my feelings, but present it in a way where I'm not accusing somebody or I'm not threatening somebody, what progress can we make? The progress that we can make is I'm trying to think of a better word, is mind blowing. I was trying to think of a better word than mind blowing, but I got lost for a word. So it made me think about that. And I wanted to create something that would be a tool. I think reading to your children is very intimate. I'm a godmother and an aunt. And with my nephew, especially, he's 2.5 now. When he's eating or when my sister's dressing him for bed, like I'll pull out a book and I'll start reading it. And that intimacy of being able to read to him and being able to do that for him. And he'll always go more and we'll read it again and whatnot. And so that's the other thing too, is I realized the intimacy of reading a book. And when I say communication too, I'm focusing on both the parent and the child, because I do believe as humans, we're always working on communication. It's not like we graduate from communication school and we're good for life. No, we have to keep on working on it. And that's the artist in me. That's the dancer in me. I mean, if my friends that aren't dancers think I'm crazy, they're like, why do you need to do the same step over at that? I'm like, because you have to. Because our bodies are always changing and there's so many layers to get it to look the way it's supposed to look. And same thing with art. There are skills that I learned at 7 that I'm still working on. And I am still working on it because we change, our thoughts change, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of the day, we all work from the same feelings list. As humans. At any age, we work on that. And so in order to bridge this like big concept and make it digestible and relatable, I chose topics and transitions that we all go through, that we can all relate to. And what I do is when Bella, the main character, who actually I have her here with me, let me pull her out. When she goes through this, her mom, her dad. So there's Bella.
Oh, so cute.
Yeah, thank you. So her mom, her dad, they relate to her as an adult. And that's also what I was going for with feelings, is us taking a step back and saying, because it's so easy as an adult to be like, well, what's the big deal shifting from a crib to a big bed? Like, why is this so scary? But then when you take a step back and you focus on the feelings of the change, you think, well, how different is this than us going to eat a new dish? How is it different than us moving into a new home or flying to a new city that we might not know? When we start relating to it in that way and realizing, oh, I see why the child's upset. I still get upset like this. I still get anxious like this. All of a sudden it becomes relatable. And that's really the goal that I'm going through. And And the way I write the books, like I pray that parents and caregivers and aunts and uncles, et cetera, when they're reading it, that they're able to relate to it, that they're able in their own way, not in a way that I don't want to be one of those writers is like, you have to do it this way. Like, I don't believe in that. As my marketing strategist, Melanie says, like, I have no box. Like, I have no box. And so I'm a big believer in you adapting it to you and your family, because we're all different. And that's what makes us beautiful. And that's what makes us human.
Yeah. Also, you want people to take away what they take away from it, without being too prescriptive. So
yeah, no, absolutely.
It sounds like you forged a lot of relationships with, you mentioned your editor a couple of times, and that seems like a very strong relationship. You just threw down or you threw out a marketing strategist. Tell me about sort of the collaborative nature of your work and kind of going from sort of thought, idea to actual product and all the people that touch it in between.
Oh, absolutely. So I think, like we said before we start earlier in this conversation, or maybe it was before we start recording, the actual writing process and the drawing process is the easiest part. And because I both write and illustrate, and I do have a lot of children's authors in my network, but I actually am, which is ironic because talk about your patterns repeating, like it's just a story of my life. I've always been the black sheep. I'm the only author and illustrator I've met so far. Like, I know other people do it. I'm not saying I'm the only one in the world that does it, but right now in my network, I'm the only one that does it. A lot of the authors I know do have outside illustrators. And I realize like that's a learning curve for me when I go the next step, because you're handing over your baby, and because so much of it's me and I'm so immersed in it. I realize, like, because the authors that I know that do hire illustrators, they already early on in the process, they're communicating to somebody their imagery, their thoughts, whereas I just go and do it. And so I realize, like, I actually have to kind of catch up and be like, this is what I want. This is what I'm seeing, because I do so much of it on my own. And finding my editor was a very big part of the process. I actually did have another team I was working with. They were making me a lot of promises that sounded great. I felt they really got me, but when the promises weren't coming through, it was a repeat to my traumas that I had already healed from. And I realized, you know what? You went through this healing process to know you don't have to repeat it. And so it actually gave me the courage to walk away and say, this isn't working for me. And they were very mad at me. And that was just a sign that I did the right thing walking away. And I went down this rabbit hole finding an editor. And one of my friends said to me, well, why haven't you talked to Susan? I was like, oh, you're right. I forgot about Susan. I emailed Susan the following day and I booked an appointment with her about a month later. And she said, why don't you come to my virtual conference? And this is the Wall Street training in me. Susan sent out the agenda for the conference in advance. So I started doing my research. I was like, okay, who do I want to go to? Who do I want to see? And I went to the presentations I wanted to. And then I did my follow-ups. And I actually did get on the phone with an agent for 2 hours. So I actually did pursue a publishing. And the first thing I said to her is, I loved in your presentation when you said, I smell money. And for anyone out there in sales knows, you have to have your hook right away. For someone like that, like, show them you're listening. Like, it's not even a compliment. It's just an acknowledgement. Like, I'm here to work. I'm here to listen. I actually met my strategist, Melanie, through that conference. I actually met my publishing agent, Susie, through that conference. And that was like a really big thing. And having a good editor, as I imagine many other authors say, is really crucial. Someone that gets you, someone that understands you is really important. My marketing strategist, that was Melanie. That was another huge piece of the puzzle, because I swear to God, like, we're like half and like, we're like two halves that we're missing and combined. I feel like she's just amazing, and she gets me. She gets my energy. She gets my ideas, and she has these amazing ideas too. And she understands the business portion of it, which is something that we talked about earlier. Yeah. And a lot of times when I talk to authors, I'm listening to them. I'm like, okay, but where's your pop-up? Where's your follow-up emails? Like, where's your landing page? Like, okay, why aren't you on podcasts? Where's your speaker kit? it's all of these pieces that she set up for me that are bringing me all these opportunities. And, learning, going back to the cold email that I learned to write for networking with Matilda, having that foundation of a cold email did help me, because now with Melanie, I'm learning how to write to press, and I'm learning how pitching to podcast is a breeze. Like, that's an easy one. Now it's easy, but that was even a learning curve, is like how to write to a podcast host. And now I'm still learning how to write to press, because I'm working on getting into the press. And those were big pieces, I feel, as like building the right team. And something else I should add too is that I learned is the team I was with before was not book focused. The people I work with now, Susan, Melanie, Susie, they focus all on books. Like the book industry, I didn't realize this until I got deep into it. Like, it's there, like any industry, like it has its own lingo, it has its own rhythm, and you really need people that live and breathe it to guide you through it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, the headline is, a lot of authors think that they can go about it alone, right? And certainly the writing part can be solitary. But, the networking that you've done, going to that writers conference sounds like probably one of the better decisions you've ever made in life. I'm putting those words in your mouth, but
No, you're absolutely right. And I can't tell you how many people, because once you say you're an author, all of a sudden the gates open. People are like, I want to write a book. I've always wanted to write a book. And I tell you how many people, and I realize we're both Catholics, I can say this openly. I can tell you how many people shut their door on me, in the sense where I'm like, well, my editor has these conferences. Why don't I put you in touch? My strategist Melanie has these virtual parties. Why don't you go? I can tell you how many people don't like brush away the opportunity. And that's where, as a Catholic, as someone that does 12-step work, I'm like, Serenity Prayer, it's their journey, not mine. It's okay, let it go. But I totally agree. Because a lot of people say to me, your marketing's really good. I'm like, yeah, because I have Melanie. I have a really great marketing strategy. But then also I always disclose, like, I do a lot of work too. Don't get me wrong. Like, because that's the thing too. I'll make sure people understand the difference between a strategist and an editor versus a consultant. You still need to do the work. It's not like you just send in your check and the magic one is waved. Like, you still need to work. Like, you still need to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I really do liken it to running your own small business. And if you were to go and say, you know what, I'm going to open up a liquor store or whatever it is, right? I'm using liquor store because that's what my brother did. Yeah. He had to learn a lot about the liquor industry. And you got to learn about marketing, and you've got to learn about laws and how to build relationships with caterers. It's all these. But so being an author is the same thing. You've got to learn your industry. You've got to learn how to operate in the industry. If you want to get recognized, you can't just, write something, throw it up on, Kindle Direct Publishing, and then hope, you get readers, which I think a lot of people do. And I'm not, I don't want to knock them, but, just be prepared for like your friends and family to be the only people who read what you write.
Yeah. Well, it's ironic you say that, because I'm going to be doing my bestseller campaign soon. But before the bestseller campaigns came, when we were working on book one coming out this spring, this is back in the fall, Melanie said, okay, we're going to get you advanced reviews. And this is what we're going to do. This is the process. I'm like, okay. And I asked her, how many reviews do you want? And she said 50. And I said, okay. That was like a first realization. It's like, I didn't set up a wall for myself. And I can tell you how many people told me along the way, oh, don't be upset if you don't get 50. Well, not only did I get 50 reviews, we actually upped my goal to 75 reviews, and I actually got 77 advanced reviews in the end. And it was a lot of late nights. It was a lot of hours setting up those automated emails, setting up the freebie gift. It was a lot of follow-up messages, but it was worth it. And it was a moment of realizing we're our own worst enemy. I'm, as a dancer, I know people don't like the dancing in this movie, but I love Dan Aronofsky's work. Because if you ask me, Black Swan is not a dance movie. It's inner child and critical parent people. It is not. It's an abusive mother. It's not about dancing, but that line that Vincent, I'm going to forget his last name of the actor, when he says, Nina, you're your worst enemy. It's true. Like if we set our minds to it, if we're willing to open that door, it's a matter of how and when we're going to open that door. Like one of my biggest things I'm working on right now is I'm actually pitching to FAO Shorts, because they feature me in their stories. And then I went in the store with my books. They're like, yeah, email her a buyer. So now I'm climbing that mountain right now. It's a combination of me, because I'm based in New York. I do have the luxury of Rockefeller Center is not far from me, that I'm doing both the go in the store and saying hello with my books, but also sending those emails to their buyer. And if you ask me, like I told my friend, I said, it's a matter of when. My strategy may adjust, but I am going to do this. I am going to make it into the store, and that's, if I can impart anything onto anyone that asks me about it. I realize like I'm kind of putting it out there without you asking me, but I really believe at the end of the day, it's about believing in ourselves. And something else I say, because I have a friend that wants to write, and she said, but Kristina, I don't want to go where you're going. And I said, you don't have to though. You don't have to go where I'm going. Like there's so many paths for writers. And that's again, where I encourage them to talk to my editor, Susan, because she knows what questions to ask these people. Like she understands like how to break down that mountain for them to realize, okay, which way do I want to go? Because there are so many beautiful paths to choose.
Yeah. Well, I have to admit, I've never seen Black Swan. However, we were flying back from Florida a few weeks ago, and my wife was watching it on it was on JetBlue.
Yeah.
And I was reading a book, which is what I typically do on airplanes. And all of a sudden, she just screams, and the whole plane just turns around and is like, what is this woman okay? And she's like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming. I need to see the movie just to understand what the scream was all about.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's very Darren Aronofsky, to me, he's a great storyteller. And that's also where I feel as an author, I get really inspired. Like I'm a huge Hitchcock fan too.
Yeah, sure.
And Hitchcock and Aronofsky, like telling a story, it's about letting your reader, letting your viewer put the pieces together. And something I'll share with you and your audience, I do in my books. So in all of my books, there is a scene where there's a tree and there's an owl in the tree. I never once mention him in the text, and he's not named. But I really believe this is the first of many series for me. And I did that on purpose because I do believe in those Darren Aronofsky, Hitchcock nuances where they keep us like, one of my favorite movies of all time is, because I'm really wacky, is Silence of the Lambs. And
oh my gosh, that movie changed my life.
Totally, right? And I read the book because I wanted to understand the movie deeper. Like that's how much I liked the movie. And as a woman, like Jodie Foster's portrayal of Clarice, like when she's climbing it up, and it's funny because at different stages of my life as a woman, I'm like, oh my God, this is me, the overachiever that's running as fast as I can, as far as I can, to run away from the trauma and figure out where. And I've had people sneer at me, like the way the men sneer at her when she and her friend are testing each other on codes. Like I've had that happen to me more times in my life than I can count. And I watched it, I'm like, oh my God, like I totally get why she's running so fast and why she's trying to figure this out. And then I actually had in therapy that breakdown moment that she has in the museum when she goes to talk to Lecter for the last time. And it's like, I feel like when you're able to tell a story and really get in there, I thought, wow, if I can do that, like how amazing would that be? Like, and I just really would love to be able to have somebody, whether it's a child or a parent, come up to me and say that. I'm like, oh my God, thank you. I'm so glad I touched you. I'm not like, I realize I'm going for a real extremity right now, but
no, I do have to wrap up
Yes.
but I have to ask you some of the fun questions I always have for people. So, which is, when you were growing up, Kristina, what were some of your favorite TV shows?
Oh gosh, as a young girl, it was like, Hey Dude. It was also Saved by the Bell, but I was always a big Bugs Bunny fan. And it's funny because Chuck Jones is a huge inspiration for me, and he designed Bugs Bunny off of Degas ballerinas.
Oh,
And so
interesting.
so as an artist, like I really like him. He's one of the people that inspired me actually led me to become an author. Like as an adult woman, realizing more of it, but like my love for Bugs Bunny and that kind of animation started from a very young age. But as an adult, I realized like the depth of it, and so it's ironic that it came full circle for me.
I mean, there was, you talk about, being a children's author and writing to both the kids and the adults. I mean,
Yeah.
Bugs Bunny is a great example of something that plays well for adults and kids as well, right? Because you get two different things out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about music? What were you listening to growing up?
Oh gosh, I was only allowed to listen to oldies until I was older. So I definitely was listening to like the Temptations, which I still love to this day. My Girl is one of my favorite songs. It reminds me of my godchild. Like I just love that song so much. But it's funny because in my teens, that's when I discovered Nat King Cole. And I actually had him playing before we hopped on to record. He is my end all be all love, not just the Christmas music all year round. Like his Christmas album's amazing, but I
So
can't get enough.
you rebelled in your teens with Nat King Cole. Is that what you're telling me?
Actually, no, I rebelled with like, I still love Goo Goo Dolls and Oasis and I have very eclectic musical taste, to be honest. And I actually originally started off with rap for whatever reason, but that didn't last very long because I'm not a rap kind of person. But yeah, I found I have a very eclectic list on my phone of music.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. So do I. I like all different types of music. I'm training for a half marathon right now, and my half marathon running playlist has just about everything you can imagine on it.
Amazing.
It's wild. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so cool. No, I was going to say though, I will say I did grow up listening to bits of the Beatles, and the Beatles are still one of my favorite bands.
Oh, yeah.
I love the Beatles. It's funny because my dad and I fight on it because he keeps telling me I like the Rolling Stones and I don't. I respect what they do. Like I do. I genuinely respect the band. I respect their legacy. I respect all of that, but it's just not my style of music. And it drives me crazy. My dad's like, "You like the Stones?" I'm like, "No, I don't." I'm like, "Please stop putting words in my mouth." I'm like, "The Beatles, yes. The Stones, no, Dad. Like, you like the Rolling Stones. I respect that." Like,
and if you could go back in time and give that black sheep / little girl who felt like she didn't belong some words of advice, what would you tell? Maybe it's that 7-year-old who's taking art lessons for the first time. What would you whisper into her ear?
I would say you're on the right path. You're going places. And keep doing this because it's going to open so many doors for you.
Yeah. You're going to be holding a stuffed elephant on a podcast someday.
And I did creator, by the way. This is my creation. I'm a crocheter and knitter as well. So yeah, I love to knit too. I became a crocheter first and I became a knitter as well. So yeah.
and all before the pandemic.
Yes, I did. And it's ironic because like my goddaughter was about she was about 1 when I first started really crocheting. And ironically, the day I gave her the butterfly blanket that I made for her, that was the day her parents asked me to be her godmother. And so these crochet creations have so many moments. And I actually was knitting a sweater for my friend's little girl last summer. And my nephew, I was looking at my pattern. He kept giving me his toys and he gave me this play cell phone. And I just come back from Italy. So I was all in my Italy mode. And I'm like, ciao, ciao, hello. And, he's laughing and playing. And at one point he took my pattern and he made it part of our game. And it was really beautiful for him to acknowledge my art. Because I purposely, when I'm around him or I'm around my goddaughter or other kids, like I do tend to knit or crochet because I can knit or crochet and still look up and talk to you. Whereas when I'm writing or illustrating, I do get very zoned. Yeah. And although at one point in my life, like I hope they will see me doing that because I do feel, and I'm not trying to make them artists. Like I'm not trying to make anyone an artist. I'm not trying to force anyone, but I want them to be able to see it and take away what they need from it. Because I think there is something beautiful about creating with your hands. And I saw one of your stories because I'm also a cook too. And I make my own sauce and gravy. And so when I saw you make it, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I love it.
That was a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Because when I make the pasta on Christmas Day, I do the ravioli, which is a real big honor for me. I'm really grateful my family lets me do that because my mom always did it. And my nephew gets so excited for the pasta machine, but it's, It's really beautiful. It's really beautiful, like seeing others. When I saw you doing it, I was like, oh, I'm so happy, because a lot of people in my network, not a lot, but enough, are not aware of it, or they haven't been doing it their whole lives. And so when I saw you doing it, I was like, yes, there's more of us.
Well, so we're half Italian, half Irish, and but it's the Italian side that took care of all the meals for good reason. And when I first met my wife, she's like, well, what do you guys usually have on Thanksgiving? I'm like, lasagna. Like,
so true.
She's like, turkey? I'm like, yeah, there's a turkey, but who likes turkey? Like, we have lasagna. I mean, it's
oh my gosh, totally.
So we've been talking to Clarice Starling. No, I'm sorry. We've been talking to Kristina Lucia. Kristina, where, if people want to connect with you, find you on social media, websites, do you have any handles or websites you want to share with us?
Yes, absolutely. So I do have my website. It's www.triplecokl.com. I do have a gift for your audience. I also design coloring drawings as well. I'm actually going to have my first coloring book officially coming out this year, which is really exciting for me as well to go along with the book. So I do have a coloring drawing I would love to share with your audience. Because I have blogs that I send out. I always have coloring drawings for every season I share. And then I am on Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest, which I will make sure I give you the notes on, so it's easy. And yeah, I would love to have you guys follow me on my journey. There's a lot of amazing things coming that I'm excited to share with you.
Well, very good. I will put all of that in our show notes so people don't have to, write this down in their cars or on their walks or wherever they are when they're listening to this. Hopefully they're awake. Kristina, thank you so much for stopping by Uncorking a Story and letting me uncork yours.
Thank you so much. It was really an honor to be here.
Thanks for listening to Uncorking a Story. If you'd like more information about today's guest or to find out more about Mike, go to uncorkingastory.com. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review us at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Tune in every week to hear Mike Carlin uncork a new story.